Yo, 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 this is Jason Myers doing an Exit Here Media interview. Exit Here Media, Exit Here Media. Let's talk about your new record. I think it's great. And let's go. Welcome to the new episode of CurseRap. In this episode, you will hear my conversation interview with Bridget Moody and John Seasons of the LA band Haunted Summer, whose new album Spirit Guides came out at the end of September. And to listen to this record is to really be, I feel like, transported to a different sort of place and time with each song that actually makes this cumulative transcending record that I think is probably one of the better ones that I've listened to in the last couple years. I did the interview with them in August in San Francisco at Hobson's Choice, and the plan was at first to release it, to write up the interview and release it in the lead up to their record. But something sort of happened along the way, and as I was wrote the interview 3 or 4 times, and something just felt wrong or off. And so when I started to first sort of do the interviews or get into this, it was as a reaction to me reading so many just like bullshit fucking pieces where I felt like I ended up knowing less about people or a band or artists that I did before I read it. And so I had always wanted to sort of like, I would usually draw these sort of larger narratives to the person I was interviewing, because those people had occupied a sort of a space in the culture that could sort of fit in with this sort of larger narrative. And then as I sort of evolved into doing the thinking about doing the digital releases, it occurred to me that some people aren't there yet, and so it's unfair to them to draw that, try to draw them to a larger narrative, because they don't occupy that space yet. And I think a lot of them will. All of them, I think, probably have the really chance to do that, very soon. But they're not there yet, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then, so it was weird though, because this interview in particular, as I wrote it out, I ended up just sort of transcribing it as just a regular kind of interview, and it just didn't feel right to me. I felt like something was just missing. And so about a week after I thought I was, going to turn it in, I was listening to it again, and this is just sort of like, I was like, wow, like, one of the hardest things to do as an artist is to sort of sell yourself in that sort of 2 minute like pitch or whatever when someone asks you about it. It's really hard. I mean, there's a narcissistic side to being an artist. That idea that like, oh, I'm gonna like go create this fucking thing, and people are just gonna, on the assumption that people are gonna love it and want to consume it. But also, most artists that I've ever talked to are very shy and bashful, and have a hard time sort of selling themselves. But when you get them talking about their work and what they've created and are putting out, they end up articulating the most amazing vision of where they're going. And with Haunted Summer, it was sort of they don't need me to sort of champion or go listen to this. They can sell themselves by talking about it. They're their biggest champions in that sense. I mean, that is sort of, to hear this interview is really just a sort of awesome experience, because it's what them talking about the last 4 years and their creative process and putting this album and the sort of the evolution that they've come across, and how they go about this project. There's no better fucking champion for that than listening to them. And so I decided, I think maybe this should be released as an audio. The problem is that we had recorded it, like I said, at a bar. But I have sort of edited and fucked with the levels enough where you can hear the interview clearly, and it's kind of fucking cool that you can hear some of the background noise. I think it sounds great. It's awesome. And I'm really excited for people to finally get a chance to check this out. Because, like I said again, I think that these two, what they've created with this new record, this is their first actually LP, what they created is this amazing sort of psychedelic, lucid wave album. And again, like I said, it's one of those rare ones that actually, each song takes you to such a different sort of mood and place, but it all fits together in this very awesome fucking, cumulative fucking album. And comparisons are fucking cheap, and it'd be lazy to fucking, do something like Beach House or fucking whatever. And to me, they're this sort of anti-Beach House, where Beach House sort of each song pervades a sort of just the general mood of one sort of mood of each throughout the entire album. Haunted Summer sort of does the opposite, and they pivot. So instead of creating this one mood, they create this entire fucking amazing record that just takes you places, but also comes together and fits very well. And again, it's a transcending record in that sense. And so I hope they're not pissed off at me for the delay. I hope that they enjoy this. I hope you guys enjoy it. I think you guys will get a lot out of this interview, this conversation actually. And so without any further ado, here is my interview with Bridget Moody and John Seasons of Haunted Summer.
A neat little setup.
Should be, right? It's not bad. This microphone's sweet. Listen to it. I'll do the playback.
Nice.
This will be a Haunted Summer interview for Exit Here Media. So, I guess let's just start this out by tell me about the tour so far. What's been happening? What's going on?
It's been going great. This tour with Ivy Buffalo has been a full circle thing, kind of. When I first saw him live a long time ago, because he kind of started up in the same scene we did.
Okay.
Highland Park, Long Beach, Eagle Rock, Echo Park, kind of thing. And
So did you guys invite him on this tour then?
yeah, he's one of my close friends.
All right.
Yeah, so we're good friends. But so basically, back then, when I first saw him, I really he kind of blew my mind how young he was, and he was writing such like interesting lyrics and stuff, and just really good music. And you know, at the time I was in my older band, and that band was more like kind of rock based, more like kind of more musical than it was lyrical. It's at least to me, you know. And yeah, it's crazy to be doing this tour with him because.
How old were you then? You were 16 and
he was 16, I was probably like 19, 20,
okay.
21, yeah.
So you've been in this your life so far.
Yeah. I mean, I just turned 31. I think he's like 26, 25.
That's kind of cool.
So,
That's a nice trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, you know, same. So, you know, when he came out, it had been, I had always been a really big fan, so it was cool. You know, I got to actually like hang out and become friends with him through him since he had started playing with him in other bands and stuff. And yeah, I think it's been a really good juxtaposition between the two. Like the crowds have been really receptive, and it's just kind of a really good feeling where it's like even whether or not like people came out to see either, if they're just there, but if somebody did come for a specific band, they kind of end up leaving being like, oh, I like that other band too. It's a very like cohesive but different kind of bill, because I never like to play with all the same kind of bands all the time.
Right.
It gets really boring.
It's nice when you find a sort of like, like you said, cohesiveness within the acts.
Especially because he's doing acoustic, so it's a lot more like intimate with him, you know.
Right. It's gotta be some like fresh. Do you guys ever go up there and do a song with him or anything?
We're gonna do one, I think tomorrow, maybe tonight. But like no, for the most part, it's been one of those things that because we're doing the full band and he's doing like his own intimate solo thing, we kind of haven't been wanting to step on each other's like musical sets.
Yeah.
But I think tomorrow, because it's our drummer's hometown, or maybe even tonight, because you know San Fran's almost our second hometown. We've done a residency here. We've come here a lot, and Amnesia. So it's been great, man. It's been really cool.
Cool. All right. Well, so. When we get the sort of, do you guys have is there a definitive release date for the record?
Yeah, September 30th.
September 30th?
Or 29th.
No, 29th it officially comes out. The 30th is the record release show.
So it'll be available.
At the Hi-Hat in Highland Park on September 30th, yeah.
Just tell me about the creative process that kind of went into the new record. Seems to me from listening, from the sample at the 2013-14 up into this, that a much more comprehensive record. Like you guys are coming into your own a little bit, finding your stride a little more. There's some confidence there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely felt that way. I mean, it took us a long time too because we're very particular, and we also we need to feel moved by something personally, whether it affects anybody else.
What kind of things are those?
I mean, just any life things,
Right.
And it could be, it can be simple too. Not everything is so uber deep, but still I don't know. We feel like it.
It feels like it, because I feel like the lyrics are very, very sort of. There's a depth to them that's, especially when it's interesting for me to think about you guys are married and stuff like that. And there's a sort of a relationship aspect to it that's, I don't know, that comes across sometimes as there's a lot of hurt and pain, but it's kind of finessed over with the sound, and also by not, it doesn't particularly take a side. It's not selfish in that. It's very much this was it.
Yeah, that's a very good way, especially at least lyric-wise. When we recently joined a licensing team, and one of my jobs to sign up was to just type out all the lyrics. Everything's been scratched out and scribbled out somewhere, and yeah, having to actually go and sit through and write out all the lyrics and just really see what they are. It's a very it's definitely a cathartic thing for ourselves, and it has translated obviously to other people too, because obviously life sucks for everybody. But we've had a lot of luck, and just it's been easy with us too, because we're very we generally are pretty open to each other's ideas, and try to flow between the two, where nobody's taking total responsibility of the music or the lyrics. Everything is always a constant flow, and we're also very much about the experience too, and that's why the record took so long to record, because we were recording it all over. We were doing different places like Joshua Tree, LA, Eugene, because the energy of a song, like it's always captured by where you are too, and it's amazing to be able to go into one studio, sit down for 10 days and record the album. Like, that's cool, but it just wasn't how this album was made. And so there's a lot of the album itself has traveled, you could say, so.
Which is kind of cool in itself, because you're not, I feel like a lot of times you're not different, but like the entire perspective on just what you wrote in one place is different from the next. You had a day or two to think about it and whatnot. But was that like something that happened organically? That idea to do that?
I mean, a lot of our favorite songwriters, Dylan and like Cohen, and just like a lot of bands that we really like we realized that songs should never be rushed, or anything should as far as like really trying to be lyrically based, like you want stuff to mean something,
Right.
So it kind of just worked out that way organically, where it was like, we had songs at certain times and different opportunities arose at different times. And, at one point, one of our sponsors is like, yeah, let me rent out a studio in Joshua Tree and come down, and I'll rent a house and we'll do this whole thing. And, I'll let you record one of your most ambitious, like, weirdest songs.
Right.
Like, the most non-corporate one, where and it's like, whoa, like, none of our music's corporate, but in the sense of like being so psychedelic that I can't even be, I think, even played on the like Spirit Guide's the title track. Like, I can't even see that.
It's 9 minutes. It's mostly
and it's not like My Fire. What I mean? There's no verse, chorus. It's kind of just its own
pretty much
living breathing.
Like the song, I mean, there's a mood set, which is probably one of the most important things. I think a lot of bands over kind of look, they gloss over the mood and focus on weird things. But I guess so. Is that in any way are you concerned ever about maybe like a lot of people go in, they do that 10-day or 30-day recording session, and then it comes out, it gets mixed, but they're going into that tour or whatever, or performing those songs on spaces that it was very much compacted. You ever worry about those songs losing their meaning, like, because you did them in different places and different...
Honestly, I feel like it almost gives them more, because when we're spaced out and having to choose, because for the most part, a good portion of the songs are ready, but when you're there, you think like, what's going to feel good here too, and it's not just like the factory of the songs. Because I feel like at least that's been my experience, not with this band, but just recording overall. Sometimes just that factory put out where you can tell the same guy was pressing the space bar the whole time. Like, it sounds good,
same
but it
miking,
doesn't.
Same sounds for all the keys and everything. I mean, she's right.
The gear alone is a miracle too. I mean, some of the gear we got to use out in Joshua Tree, we'd never find in Eugene, or this, that, and the other.
Totally.
We even did some stuff at Jim Henson's studios in Los Angeles, and we were like recording in the We Are the World room and shit.
Randy Jackson coming in and like phone calls about like Keith Richards needing the studio and taking us out. It's like crazy stuff like that, which is like, it's pretty surreal, like how that happened.
Very interesting way to record.
I feel like this studio really inspires us too, because even live, like, we're a very organic band. Like, nothing really ever sounds the same twice. Like, we try, we have this structure, we try to go in, but for the most part, like, we don't play to backing tracks, we don't have a click, everything is just kind of free flow, and it can change. And
we knew we wanted to make that kind of record too, because with Something in the Water, it was more based on like 2 different studios, and just these songs that kind of poured out, that was a specific kind of mood, right? Like, to me, that album's very like melancholy, and like
technically 3 studios if you count the home.
Because we did a home studio too. That's why there's 3 studios. But it was like very, it happened very quickly, and it was like its own mood, and we're like super happy with that EP, because it was like, for us, it was like coming from the other bands we were in, it was like, whoa, we finally tapped into something. Then especially seeing like the reaction, that was, for us, it was just like, hey, let's write these songs for us. Let's prove it to ourselves. We've been playing with these bands for a decade, and they're doubting like our ability, and we did it just for us, and it ended up being like something that touched way more people than we could have imagined. You know, I put us in positions of like, oh, you know, go on tour with these bigger artists or have these bigger opportunities, where it was like we had to deny a lot of these things from the get-go because we didn't know how to perform as the band yet. We were like, oh, we just recorded these songs, like, you know, and you know, we turned on a few pretty gnarly gigs, but it was like for the greater good, I think, because, you know, it was for the sound's sake. You know, we didn't want to go out there and just play a nylon guitar, which there's nothing wrong with that, but but like back then it was just like, well, that can't be our first shows, because that's kind of weird. We did this whole like kind of thing with this record, and you know, we kind of knew that about this new one, where it was like we wanted it to kind of mirror a lot of our favorite records, of like having many moods, many different kinds of songs, and being something where it's like, you know, it's not one mood, it's many, but it's also like each song kind of transports you somewhere.
Well,
you know what I
I
mean?
told Samantha when she sent me the link the first time, and I listened to it, and I was like, pivots really coolly, so you never really get comfortable. You know, it's like, it's not
I know she sent you the whole album.
Yeah.
Nice.
I listened to it. Yeah, you see all those plays by your friend, that's me listening to it.
It's so much easier to talk about it too.
Right,
when
absolutely.
You,
Yeah, no, I
when you know what
I
we're talking
refuse
about.
to do interview people or be interviewed about if they haven't read my stuff or if they haven't listened to it.
Exactly.
That's why I don't do like 5-question email interviews. It's like, what's your favorite album? Like, I mean, I care, but like, if that's the genesis of the whole thing, then it doesn't matter, right? So yeah, it was, I guess, sort of. Do you think about that sort of juxtaposition, but I guess that contradiction, I know that you talked about in other interviews, that sort of there's a darker nature to the lyrics and generally the music per se. I mean, is that an aesthetic that you?
It happens organically, kind of.
Because, but is that something that you still keep in the back of your mind, or is that maybe strife?
That's kind of like our view in life music, kind of, because everything is kind of like beautiful and you know, like dark at the same time. You know, like so like for us, like we've tapped into that, where it's like, you know, maybe the song sounds so pretty to you that you're like, oh, this is a pretty song, but if you really listen to the lyrics, you're like, oh, whoa, it's like, it's a little dark, or it's a little like, you know, it's touching on some heavy subjects.
We're definitely not afraid to go darker musically either. It's just, we honestly don't think at all really about the song when we're performing it. It just kind of, and we're like, cool, that's the song. And you build on it, but the initial concept of the song is always just
that's up in the air,
That's kind of inherent about the fact that you guys sort of formed the band after so many years.
We were always, I mean, we were best friends for a long time. Or we were good friends at least for a long time before the band, and you know, we were kind of always considered like the weirdest members of each band. You know, kind of like she was doing like the interesting sounds and singing really interestingly, and I was doing like weird, interesting stuff with my older band too. And so like when we came together, it was kind of surreal how like, it really just happened that way, you know, because we're both kind of, I mean, my dad has said it. My dad's like, whoa, you married Bridget, it's amazing, but he's like, you guys are like almost the same person, just a different gender, you know? Because you kind of have like a lot of the same likes and the same thoughts and stuff, and it's like, but you know, every step's kind of a true like statement to like what Bridget was saying of like not really thinking about it going into it and letting it be what it is.
That's you know, in retrospect, that's easily like one of the poppiest
songs ever written.
It just felt good, you know, just felt good at the time, and it still does. And you know, I never feel disingenuine about anything we do, and I will do my damnedest to keep it that way.
That's why it took us 4 years. I mean, you know, if we wanted to rush it, a lot of people were wanting us to rush it. A lot. And even to this day, like, there was people that wanted us to delay it, to put it out. Like, you know, I won't go into what labels or whatever, but there was people that are like, you know, we'll put it out, but you gotta wait till October 2018. And I'm like, we just spent 4 years on this. Like, you know, like, you know, the songs, like you were saying, like you don't want to lose the freshness of like hating the song after a time.
Right.
But it's like, to me, they feel so great right now that I want to like capitalize on that feeling and be like, let's push this, you know? Nothing
also,
wrong.
too, you just,
Yeah.
if you wait another year, you're going to start writing something else. Because that album's
And that's gonna
done.
happen, and that's gonna
Right.
happen regardless.
Regardless,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like you'll probably be a little more
But
deep
yeah.
into it.
Yeah,
'Cause you're like,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
done. And
You know,
I'm
and,
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
And,
Move on,
and then
right?
best case scenario, people are dying to hear that stuff that you're just like so burned out on.
Well, you guys signed?
So what we did, our past releases have been put out by like a few different people. Like there's this label in LA called Touch Vinyl. They put out our tapes for Birth.
Okay.
And then our sponsor Ninkazi, who paid for the Rancho de la Luna, a few recordings that are on the new album. They repressed our original Something in the Water EP in a huge bulk way
Cool.
with like vinyl and CDs.
Nice.
So this time around, you know, we're gonna self-release, but it's gonna be a label that we're gonna start up because we want to
Nice.
start putting
Good way
out
to do it,
stuff too. But you know, we're open to the concept too, because I've seen it happen with friends, and I've seen it happen, like, you know, we got repressed by Ninkazi, where it's like, if people really like this record, they'll see that, you know, we're putting it out, but it's not on a major scale. We're not pressing, you know, 20,000 vinyls right now thinking like they're gonna ship out tomorrow, you know. So it's like, depending on how it goes,
Be a terrible mistake.
yeah, it's like depending on how it goes, it's like, hey, you know, somebody has the opportunity to walk in and work with us. But like, you know, for the most part, Something in the Water actually did really good, and like, you know, I'm excited that finally having a full length. I could only believe that the interest that was there for a 5-song EP will be
It's
greater
interesting
than
to see, you know, like it was, you know, when I was looking you guys up to start doing research, and then Samantha sent me a bunch of stuff too.
Rode that wave for years, right?
Yeah, so you see that 2013, 14, and then there's like one thing from 2017
yeah, we put out
or
like
whatever.
one
Yeah.
single last year.
And so it's
We're
interesting
floating,
to see
man.
that, but
We're
it's
floating.
awesome too. I appreciate that as, you know, like fucking as an artist.
Yeah,
We were
taking your
super
time.
Taking your time doing it. Don't
And we're also
rush
super
into
busy
something.
too. I mean, we're being put on the road every other week for that EP because it was
Yeah.
like stuff still kept coming in. It was like, you know, at first it was like some pretty bizarre opportunities. Like, hey, do you guys like want to open for Os Bundantes? Or you want to
Yeah.
do this like Coco Rosie show in Paris? And we're like, oh man, like, you know, that's going back to like the whole like
when
we're
we
not
didn't
ready,
even
right?
know how to play it.
But then when we were ready, it was like, hey, do you want to go on tour with Islands? Do you want to
Yes.
go on tour with Geographer?
Yes.
Do you want to go on tour with David J. Bauhaus? Like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I'm just like, yeah, I want to do it. So it didn't ever stop. It was kind of like the Dylan thing, where it was like we went on the never-ending tour, and we kept writing songs and taking opportunities with like studios. But because we never stopped touring, it took a long time, you know. And we also wanted to take
It's a
our
good
time.
luxury to have, though.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not that you were
definitely.
sitting around being
Oh, yeah.
jammed or trying to figure out some dysfunction or whatever. It was
Yeah,
like,
no, we were
we're just too
lucky.
busy to actually
Trying the
like
songs
get
And
this
to
don't
done.
vibe,
miss that
right?
too. Yeah,
Like-
being able to have really road tested all those songs, it really
That's cool, yeah.
that's really what makes this album feel like,
Right.
all right, this is, you know, we played these songs for a year or two,
Seeing
maybe
audience
even
reaction,
more,
yeah.
all over the country. Like, I feel good about this song.
Did you guys cut a lot of songs? Or how many did you
Yeah, oh,
have?
yeah.
There's definitely some extras,
yeah.
but they're not, you know, cut forever. They're
Right.
just, they're just
For now.
not,
It's a luxury to have. When I was interviewing Nervous Lovers, and they kind of said the same thing, where it was like the luxury to have was being able to go in and be like, this
Yeah.
one's out, this
Yeah.
one's out,
Yeah.
instead of
for a
like,
while we weren't
right.
at that point. We're like, oh sheesh, we might need like 5 more songs.
We
And
thought
then
it was
all
going
of
to be a
sudden it just
14 track, 13, then we were like 12, then we we're like, okay, 11, and then now we're finally like 10.
we finally
It's
came
good,
to the
but
21st
it's,
century.
again, there's a
song
nice,
record.
Yeah.
there's a nice thing that just, it never lets you, like, musically, puts you in this mood, but also too, it's like it doesn't get you really comfortable per se. It's like what
keeps
you're
you interested, kind
Yes,
of. Like,
exactly. It keeps you on your
Yeah.
feet, but it doesn't lose the cohesiveness
Yeah.
to like sort of, you
That's
know,
great.
it's a nice,
It's good to hear.
very psychedelic too.
That's good to hear, because I haven't really heard many people talk about
Not a
even
lot of
hearing
people
it,
have
right?
heard
'Cause
them.
not
Right,
everybody's-
yeah, right, yeah.
But like,
I feel like
that
what
was
with you-
ultimately our goal, is to have, to keep your interest and be transport you. Everything you've been saying is kind of like, it's great to hear, because it's like that's what we took so long to do. That's what we really wanted, you know, wanted to transport like the listener into different worlds and places. That's why we have a lot of like ambient stuff in there too, like sounds of like waves and nature. And, it adds something.
Definitely, yeah. There's the layers in there where it's I've probably listened to it all the way through 6 or 7 times.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
that's great.
there's something else that I hear every time, but like again, it doesn't like lose anything. It doesn't seem overly produced or doesn't seem overly like you're trying to do something. It does feel, very organic. It feels like there's an identity too, like more than the first EP.
Yeah.
It seems like you guys, again, like I said at the beginning,
Became more of a band. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like what sort of like how do you guys, what inspires besides like life issues, good or bad, like what sort of inspires you in the creative process? Do you guys take stuff from books or past relationships or
all of the above?
Yeah.
All of the above?
Yeah, pretty much.
I come from obviously literary background.
Everything. I mean, just like everything. Like we take stuff from like our past, our stuff from the present, the future, our surroundings, dreams. For a while we were playing on the fact of like kind of this reincarnation thing and how we had found each other because we felt so like attached and like we felt like we had these songs and these feelings for like longer than we had been here, which is kind of like our first biography as Haunted Summer, where it was like we lost each other through the decades, or through the centuries, but we found each other this time, and we're just translating the sounds we've heard through time. But now it's more like we're just anything, man. Like we have a lot of like happiness and pain that's already happened to us in our short lives, So
it's never, do you guys write about like past relationships and pain and like?
I mean, there's always
ever anything like that sneaks into it? Because I feel like there's like a lot of, I mean that's always, especially as you get older, it's always an energy that's going to be there where you're kind of very. A lot of people will sort of look back, right? Exactly, and they write about the creative process, but then when you have the unique sort of situation that this is where you guys are married, kind of like the Nervous Lovers thing too. They were married and I asked them.
There's definitely, there's reference and there's, kind of I guess really a reference to what has been compared to now or this and that. But
we respect each other artistically.
Right.
Yeah. But I feel like there's a lot of things too. I think our only downfall lyrically would just be maybe being too introspective and sometimes having a hard time like putting yourself in a completely different circumstance, situation. But we do that as well, and like when it does happen, I think that's like it's cool because it breaks us out of our I'm just like telling the story. And,
right.
It's a lot of family.
We have a lot of stuff we've tapped into too, like without knowing. Like 1996, like that was a lyric that I wrote kind of with her, and then we were writing this whole little lyric or whatever, and we realized, because I was telling her, I was like, 1996 was a tough year. It was like the year that my parents were about to split and like all this crazy stuff was going on, and she's like, that was the year like my dad and my mom split. And I was like, whoa, and it became this whole like the song really took on like this whole story without really trying to do that, like because we had written the lyrics already. We're just like, whoa, this song means something to us while we were writing it, which we didn't really know, that like totally means something to us now. That's like, whoa, like it really is about something.
That's bigger than just like your own kind of struggle.
That's one thing I think, in not a religious way, but it's definitely like, it's a lot of our lyrics are kind of looking towards like the greater good or like fate, as you could see it, or just the universe kind of having a place for you, whatever it may be, good or bad.
It makes totally sense about your story too, as well. Like, I mean, that there's an overlap there. That you guys could be friends and be in these bands and have the same sort of, I guess, from what I've read, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it definitely, it all came together in a very, like, kind of fast and intense way. And, I think we always tend to have our best efforts really come to fruition when we just kind of trust that and just, really go go with our instincts, and the second you start questioning yourself too much, that's when it just.
Well, I was gonna say, so does that balance? So having that unique relationship that you guys do, that questioning and stuff, like, is it a healthier than you think when you're talking to somebody else who's, I've been in bands before too, where it's like you're questioning these things, but with somebody who you're one of your buddies or like a hired gun or whatever.
We're just really honest at that moment, though.
Yeah.
Where it's like, obviously sometimes stuff's self-explanatory. Where like we write a lyric and we're like, that's obviously not about me, or that's not about.
Right. Yeah.
And then we're just like, well, it's like I said, artistically we have that mutual respect that for the greater art of the song. I don't think there's been a moment where I'm like, I don't like that lyric because it's about your ex-boyfriend, or like it's about like your ex-lover or something, or
very cool.
Or like vice versa, her too, like where it's like I know that lyric.
I sing more of those than
right, but like being secure in that, which I think is just in a band is very much.
That's one thing, just in life in general, you have to acknowledge somebody's past. Because if you just want them to wipe that slate clean and just pretend that, this is where it all starts, it's like you're never going to fully understand that person, and it makes it harder, man. And, we're lucky to, be in a position to where, we have the opportunity to look back in a fond way for some things, and and move on from others as well. So it's all been a very cathartic thing, and now I feel like we can kind of like speak to each other on a deeper level through the music. Sometimes sometimes you get stifled by just humanness and you can't express yourself, and sometimes I feel like we at least have that language always in the pocket, at least for,
regardless of like, because obviously we're married, we're friends, we're like we're like musicians that play in the same band.
That's like a layered thing, which is very much like.
Yeah, and one thing I feel like that has never really had like a struggle per se, as far as like troubles or anything, has been like at least the lyrical content and the musical stuff too, where it's like, I don't feel like. We've told each other maybe like suggestions and stuff, but like I don't think we've ever like stifled a lyric because of like, like I don't like
insecurity
that. I think it's for the greater art, it's like whatever's gonna make the song great, it's mostly being honest,
Right, that's right. It's just like it's an interesting, contradiction, and just with the way that most people experience.
It's like reading somebody's diary. Exactly. You read somebody's diary, like you're gonna feel maybe like a little, uncomfortable at times and this and that, but it's like you gotta respect that person's like, personal, things they wrote or they felt and they saw and stuff. So it's like the same thing. It's like when we're doing this, it's like it's so personal, but yet we trust each other so artistically and musically that I don't think there's been any trouble in that.
I think we do a pretty good job of masking it in relatable tones. So
it doesn't seem like it's not like there's no like
fuck you, Steve.
Right, or some regret or angst that comes out. It's very much so. It's like you guys there's a past. It's like O'Neill said, the past is the present and the future too. It's always with you, and the worst thing you could probably do is not acknowledge somebody else's past.
The sweet's never as sweet without the sour.
Well said. What are the kind of main objectives or goals that you guys have, like you're listening for the new record?
Definitely want to just hit the road again really hard. Hopefully get out into broader markets, finally hit Europe and stuff like that. We've been having fans there and stuff. We just haven't been able to make the full jump because we want to do it right.
How excited are you just to release this on the general?
So excited.
People are going to be into it.
It's like having been pregnant for 4 years. I'm just like, get it out already. It's crazy.
It's going to be a great chapter, I think, in the band's book or whatever, of like, taking a lot of opportunities and interests that we couldn't take before because people were like, well, we want to have you, but all you've put out is this EP that came out a few years ago, and like,
and we
guys are doing great things, but like, when's your record coming out?
Is
When's
it
your
hard
record
to stay that patient
Very
with all these
hard. Yeah, of
opportunities?
course.
It's hard too because
I mean, hopefully they stay in that patient.
Yeah.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, it's always. I mean,
I feel like,
you want to
yeah.
have that.
Yeah.
That was the thing too. As we were recording along, we didn't want to like just start sending what's been done already because we worked
Right.
kind of backwards. We did the craziest shit first,
First.
and then kind of the cool, like, oh, this
Yeah.
is easy listening stuff last. So we didn't. That was always the hardest part, at least when people did want more, and it's like we just don't really have what we want to show you yet.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want to send a song completely out of context. That record is meant to be a whole.
Which I think is cool is you guys. That means you value the artistic. Sort of. I think dedication also the value in art is where it's like you shouldn't rush it, and then have that to be secure enough to be like, hey, we want to put out the best record, not what's most convenient for us right now.
And we saw it too, man. We saw that when we were touring because people were like really into the EP, like booking us for these shows or coming to the shows and buying the EP, and we were like, okay, they really like this because we really like this, and
Right.
we took our time. And whether this just came out so quickly that we did it, it was still something we were really proud of and we really liked. And so we were like, with the record, yeah, we can't just put something that we're not super like, I would love this record if it's not my band, like I didn't have that feeling for like a long time. It was very like, we weren't there yet.
And living in LA too, you see
Right.
the opposite of that all the time, where people are just like some band who's been around for 2 or 3 years has 10 albums and people only know maybe 6 songs. It's like, that's
Right.
cool. Obviously there's a market for that too, but it's just
it's not a
I'm
story,
totally
it's
about
not
the
an album.
I
Yeah,
love the
totally.
Yeah,
album.
there's nothing wrong too
Oh,
with
just
somebody
like
being that
mixtape.
productive, but there's also something to say about, having a large piece of work and
Feels
having
like-
a few masterpieces, or what you would at least consider yourself a masterpiece,
Well,
right?
it feels like one sort of like striving for kind of instant gratification. And one has the patience to fucking evolve into the best
Yeah.
version of himself. And I've always felt like, as an artist, at least to you, every project should be better than the last to
Yeah.
you. Otherwise, it's clearly not worth its doing. Other people might not like that, or people might think
But as long
differently.
as you feel like
Right.
you're growing,
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
That's
Or
why I
making
feel,
the best, that you're
and that's why I'm really excited to get this one out, because I'm ready to keep growing too. Like, there's a lot of stuff we've worked on, and I just feel like, if we really focus and really think about how this past record happened in all of its entirety, really do think like whatever's coming next is going to be pretty sweet.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of, having such an intimate kind of recording process and songwriting process, how do you harmonize that on the road when you add other elements into it?
We've been lucky. We've had a large touring family, meaning like we've had different people kind of come in and out when they're available, and we've been open to that because, at the end of the day, we've kind of been the forces behind the band and we've marketed it that way. So we've been lucky to just add different things and kind of be open to, like Richard had mentioned, being like, okay, it's not going to be exactly like the album that you heard, but it's the song. And we always love that about artists that we really like Animal Collective will never play the song the same way twice,
Right.
like Dr. Dog, or like I've seen even bigger artists like Petty play something like different, or Dylan or anything. And it's like, I'm open to the whole we're open to the whole like reinterpretation of a song, because that's kind of what keeps it fresh. When you were saying like, how does it stay fresh after it's been so long, or this and that? It's like, well,
We've had a lot
kind
of
of
different versions.
you keep doing, you keep making the song fresh. Like, for instance, we have a bass player this time around that plays clarinet, so he's playing clarinet on some songs, and just different things you can try with different people, because their strengths, or what could be really good because of their style and
Different
stuff.
styles, yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, we've been straight up punk rock and roll band to like the jazziest.
And what kind of keeps it all together is me and her. So like we're like the main sound of like all the keys, her vocals, my guitar work. So that's always constant, right? But like the interpretation of the song's different depending on who's there. I mean, we've had like woodwind sections and like string sections on records and live, you know. And it's been, I've seen people's faces like when they've come and thought they were like gonna see like, oh, I'm gonna see a 4-piece band, and they show up and it's like an 8-piece with like woodwinds, and they're just like, this is like crazy like jazz fusion stuff.
Right,
It really was like acid jazz.
And you guys like very hand the other 3 members that are on tour with you guys.
Yeah.
They're your friends.
Oh,
you've
they're
been on tour
friends.
before.
Yeah, we have to be, you know, close enough at least. Cause, I mean, you know, in a pinch, you end up sometimes having to get a hired gun, but when you're really hitting the road and you're out there for more than, you know, a few days, honestly, it really starts to you know, everybody starts to show their true colors, and, you know, good or bad, it's not specifically the person, it's just sometimes the mesh of people, and we've been really fortunate.
Did you guys kind of come in with this project go like, we're not going to do it like the other kids?
Well, because of mainly of our, you know, old projects, and having been, you know, I had been a touring bassist for a few bands too, and just seeing like, I always told her, and she knew too because she had seen it, but the whole like, how when somebody can't tour, they really can't tour, meaning like, they start getting homesick, they start getting really negative, they start getting really grouchy, they don't enjoy the show, even if it's a great show. And, you know, you can tell, and, you know, the people we work with, she said, they're good friends, and we've road tested our friends that have worked with us to see, like, okay, you did a West Coast tour, you did great, like, you feel good, like, nothing happened really, and then, you know, we've done national stuff with them too, where it's like, it's the same thing, so you realize, like, you know, there's just a breed of people that actually really enjoy traveling and doing art in different places, regardless of that outcome.
We're gutter rats, man. I mean, we'll sleep in the van every day.
Totally.
You know, we'll take the brunt of whatever pain.
We've slept in the van when people are staying in like a 4-star hotel because
your gear's in there.
Yeah, exactly. I never
been on the road.
Well, I'm just like, you know, if somebody took this, it's like taking everything, like, because I mean the gear in there is like, we're talking about like 15, 20 grand. It's like robbing a small store for everything.
Anytime soon.
So yeah,
because you want to sleep on the floor in a 4-star.
Yeah. Screw that.
But honestly,
I'll show up in the morning, get a guy to come out to the van so I can take a shower.
Right, exactly.
Clean up, we'll take turns.
It's funny, like you said that.
That's a breaking point for a lot of people, man.
Oh, absolutely. Because
I mean, lodging, food, it could be a lot of things.
There's schemes too, man. Like you check into a hotel and they're like, hey, a band just checked in, like come down, like that's what happened to Abby Buffalo. And when he was on tour too, he was at some hotel and they checked him in and like, you know, they robbed his stuff and he went to go eat or he went to go do something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but it's like a whole like scheme, you know,
absolutely,
like, why not? Like,
it's
just
so
look on
easy.
bands in town. Who's in town? Let's rob them.
That's why you need someone to always be willing to stay with the van. Get in the van, because Henry Rollins once wrote.
Tattoo that on my forehead.
Right. Well, that's like stay with the van. So like, I guess, where do you kind of start kind of wrapping this thing up? Where do you kind of see yourselves, or do you see yourselves in a certain way, like 2-3 years from now? Like when I'm writing, working on the next book, and I'm thinking about the next one, I'm like, you know, and like, when we get here, like, what would that look like to you? I guess, like, what would be a good progression for you? Like a realistic, but also like kind of where you want.
I mean, something that has really blown my mind, at least how far we've come in this way, is like the people we've been able to open for are all over the map. So for some reason, our music is incredibly versatile, and we can play with Latin Grammy award-winning artists and this Icelandic composer, and then Polyphonic Spree, and then Death Heaven, and then like basically like, you know, because honestly,
do you think it's because of just the way that you have operated and written songs that you're not like this? Because I feel like it's one of the most annoying things, or when, you know, there's bands that are just flat-footed that word this, and I'm like, no, like, why would you ever want to do that to yourselves? Doesn't mean you don't have a sound and identity.
Pigeonhole yourself.
Right.
No, it's definitely been that, and also our willingness to change it up too. You know, because we'll play as a 2-piece sometimes, and you know, we do lots of different versions, and I feel like for a band of our stature, that's really just something I would hope for. It's just to really keep touring with amazing bands and just keep, you know, make that grow, because there are so many opportunities. I've seen them, I've taken some already, and I want more.
Just keep touching people too with the music. I mean, you know, like I was saying earlier, like when we started this, we started it for me and her just to prove it to ourselves and be like, we can write songs and songs that we like, right?
How did that feel when you
felt
got
amazing.
over that?
It felt amazing.
Like,
I mean, it felt like the most.
Do you remember the moment?
It was the most vindicated. You know, it was like so beautiful because like there was so much doubt there from so many people that I had called friends and bandmates for a long time. Of like, especially me coming as John Seasons, like having the band named after me and like writing all the songs. Writing all the songs at first, and then it getting so convoluted that by the end I was just like a session player pretty much, you know. And like, but the you know, the amazing thing is just like knowing that, you know, like with this group, like there's the opportunity to do, you know, so much more with like actually touching people for more than a moment, you know, like where that band could be like a rocking moment. You're like, oh, that's a rocking song, or but you forget, you go home and you forget all about it, right? But what if like we played a song, you heard a song from us that touched you so much that you would like come back to it? Maybe not every day, maybe not every week, maybe just every month, or even from time to time. She came back to it because of the feeling that you were feeling because of it, right? That to me is the biggest goal and the only goal apart from being able to make this a living, and in the most earnest, modest way too. Like I don't want to, you know, I don't think either of us, speaking for both of us in this moment, would want to be so flashy. I mean, you know, anybody wants to be successful, right? But we
I respect that you said that because that to me that's the most honest one of the most honest answers.
That you don't
is that like when I interviewed Matthew Marco, he said the same thing. He was just basically like, you know, I want this to be a full-time job. Like that's one of the big, besides like doing the art,
you know,
because
I just don't want to
do what you love to do.
And I just don't want and I don't want anybody, you know, to really try to like take the art from us, where it's like, you know, tell us how to dress, how to write, like how to make the song sound, where it's like, you know, certain people have that freedom. You know, Wilco has that freedom. Mac at this point has that freedom because he's proven himself, right? Well, I want us to prove ourselves to the point where if somebody does want to start working with us on a grander scale, they believe in us so much that they will let us be the artists and they will handle the business, you know.
And
to me, that's the biggest goal, man. Just touching people and being able to make it a living in the most honest, earnest, modest way, you know. And if it's bigger than that, so be it. But I never want the art to be the sacrifice, ever.